Medallions of mahi mahi. That always struck me as whenever you see the word medallions of on one of these South Beach restaurant menus, that's it. Don't order that. Get a hot dog. Get yourself out of there because you're going to be. It's worse than the old syndrome that used to be the cliche about Chinese restaurants, where you stuff yourself and then a half hour later you're hungry again. Medallions of mahi mahi. I was a place last time I think I actually ate. This is centuries ago already on the South Beach. A South Beach restaurant was a place called a fish called Avalon, and I had the medallions of mahi mahi, and you literally needed an electron microscope to see the food that was the main course. The parsley was bigger than the medallions of mahi mahi. Medallions is another name on a restaurant menu for small.
Yes.
Or minuscule. It may as well just be minuscule pieces of fish. That would be the way to describe the dish. But medallions of mahi mahi. Wow, I mean the elegance. The way the chef prepared. Anybody could prepare like a morsel of fish. It's hard to bloat at. The piece is so small. I mean, unbelievable.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Good morning, one and all. As my head sort of cut off here. Another weekend. It is a Peel. Oh, didn't even change the header either. Fun. Another Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday here on the Defo Show. No Defo, just Lubie here on South Florida Live. So, Dolphins lose. We'll just go right. I guess it is the Dolphins crying towel. There's no Godfrey Lovejoy. There's no Defo as well. As Defo is in the Bahamas, I guess. What's fun about Defo's trips is he mocks my trips, but like he knows about them like in advance, like well in weeks in advance, usually at least a month. And most of the trips are months in advance. What's fun about Defo's trips, and when my trips happen, either there's a fill-in, so he's not by himself, or we don't do a show. What's fun about his trips are they happen tomorrow, and I don't have a fill-in for. I mean, who can fill in for Defo? Like, there's no one like Defo. So when Defo has a trip, he's gone, and he doesn't. There's no really a heads up. It's not like it's like I thought it was January 18th. It's actually December 1st. Defo, today is November 30th. Exactly. All right, I'll see you. It's like, don't really, okay. So here I am. So hopefully you all had a great weekend. I had a very house-filled weekend. We've talked a lot about my move. Hold on. Talked a lot about my move. It's been ongoing. I want to get that up and running, and sorry about that. Sorry about all the fun on-air, off-air stuff. All right, so we've talked a lot about my move. Now, everyone, I presume at some point, whether you're older or young, no one's old here, but older or young, you've moved at some point, right? No one likes a move. Man, I get it, and I've been through them. I've been through apartment to apartment. The last one was a townhouse, so it had the home feel. There's nothing like, and again, it's not complaining. We're in a really Defo's made fun of the amount of money we spent on this home. People don't realize that I'm not, my wife is, but it's us together. Believe me, she's not alone. Believe me, she's not alone. She wants to think she is sometimes, but she is not alone. I've been spending a lot of money, whether I have it or I don't, been spending it on this house, getting out of the other house, getting into this house, now being in this house. When a home purchase is something different, because first of all, we did work on the other house. It was a townhouse, but we worked on the stairs and we worked on the master bath, and then eventually we worked on the patio. But it's a 2-bedroom house. How much can you do? Like, once you do that work, there's not much else. Yeah, there's other stuff we wanted to do, the guest bath, and we never did that. Fine. But like, there wasn't really a long list of things to do. In a house, it's never ending. We did the kitchen. Then The workers weren't spectacular, but it looked nice. It looks good. We did the master bathroom or the main bathroom. I know master is not a PC term. The main bathroom, our room bathroom, looks great. Some other thing, the TVs finally got up. We painted the whole house because you have to paint the house. It can't just be the dark gray. Now it has to be the light gray because it has to. So we painted the house because that's just we did that in the other house. So it's a pastime. You buy a house, you have to paint it. I don't really understand that one, actually. I didn't mind the color, but it was dark. It was dark, and it made the house feel dark. That's another thing. I don't understand why people do that. Like, why do you buy these nice houses and make them not nice? Like, when we showed people pictures of this house, they were like, okay. And now they walk in and see what we've done. They're like, oh my God, it's amazing. And it's the same house. We just painted it and put furniture in it. Like the guy before us, he was an older dude, and he chose to paint it dark gray. Like, why do you want to make it dark? I get it. I want it white all the time. Believe me, my wife goes a little crazy with the white. But like, why would you want it dark? I don't. And it's cool when there's shade, and that's cool. But like, why do you want it dark? I don't know. So you have to paint it, obviously, because why wouldn't you paint it? And you have to furnish it, and then you have to work on it. And what's great about a home is, and I guess we screwed up in this regard, we gave our home to someone else where they didn't have to do anything. If he wants to do the guest bathroom, he can. Our fridge broke in February. We didn't G it out. We bought a new fridge. Even though we knew we were selling in the next few months, we bought a new fridge. So they do it as a new fridge. The dishwasher works well. The oven works well. The microwave works well. The washer and dryer isn't spectacular, but it works. And he doesn't have to get rid of it anytime soon. He bought a home that he doesn't have to do much to. That's not what happens. Usually when you buy a home, you need to redo everything. I don't know. I don't understand that. But within the first month, the connectors on the pool pump broke. Had to fix that because there was a flood the first week before we had just signed the papers. First week flood. Had to change that. The first month, the thermostat goes. None of these are huge things. But within a month, things that seem major, like the AC's not working, seems major, goes. So it's just interesting to me that like people sell their home, don't really do due diligence at all, and don't give a shit what shape it is to the next person. So that's fun. I was neurotic. Everyone made fun of me. Like I was really stressing out. I wanted to make sure it went through. And I wanted also to make sure the guy got it in good shape because I know how it is to get a home in shitty shape. Well, we did. And it's not a foreclosure home, but there's a lot of things like that. It's funny when we were talking, we were very open about the things we were going to do to the home because it was, I don't want to say dilapidated, but it was built in the 80s and they never outside of the floor, and he got rid of the popcorn. Thank God. He didn't do anything to the house. Like everything, it was Formica. Like what house is Formica in 2022? Kitchen and bathrooms, Formica. So like we're openly talking about it as the owner was here. He's like, "Oh, you guys flippers?" I'm like, "Flippers, dude. Your house is old. Like, you really don't think that the kitchen island was oblong and an octagon?" I don't even care about islands, and even I knew that's fucked up. So, like, I don't understand. Like, I'm not one to do a lot of work around the house, but if you own a home for 30 years. At some point, you want to do like my mom complains because her kitchen's not the shape she wants. She's done work to that home over the years. They put tile, they put new furniture, they've redone the cabinetry in the bathroom. Like my mom feels disgusted by her home, which it's actually a nice home, and she underrates her home. And she's done work to it. Like I don't understand and the stuff that's not right. She knows their kitchen cabinets could be better. Like this dude. Oh yeah, what do you mean? It's like, dude, your kitchen's Formica and you have cabinets for no fucking reason that just take over. Literally, all we did was get rid of cabinets and put in new stuff, and the kitchen looks double the size. So, anyways, as I rant about my home, which no one cares about, I just know we've all gone through this. So moving's fun. We closed literally October 27th. We're now in the middle of December, and we just got in last week, and we're still unpacking. Yes, there's still boxes, because that's the other thing people ask. Did you get rid of the boxes? Almost. We almost got rid of the boxes. We're down to like 3 boxes, which I'm proud of my wife and I. It's actually impressive. We built every furniture, because now you have to build furniture. You don't buy furniture. You buy furniture to build. I mean, that's how it is. It's cheaper. And it's not just IKEA. See, what was fun is a decade ago, I helped my buddies move into homes, or I moved into homes, and you had IKEA furniture you had to build. Now it's all of it. Amazon, anywhere you buy furniture, even if you can buy furniture at a furniture place, you still have to build like, I don't even remember that growing up. Like I remember you'd buy furniture and it was fucking there. Like once in a while you go to Walmart and you buy a cheapy Good morning, Mr. Possum. You'd go to Walmart and you'd buy something, a stupid ass dresser, you'd have to build it fine. But not every piece of furniture, beds, couches, chairs, anything you buy, even if you go to a furniture store, you still have to build it. So we built all the furniture. Yay, thank God. All right, we have the furniture built. I've almost floored the studio. As you can tell, it's still hollow in here because there's no fucking floor. It's a quarter done. That's a process. Everything's another process. And that's the other thing you have to deal with is whether it's contractors or yourself, you get these highfalutin ideas where you're going to move right in and then it'll magically be what you want it to be. No, that's not how it works. Not at all. Like it's neither my wife or I are very patient people. Like she's a businesswoman. Like she owns a business. She helps run a business. She does this thing. She's like, how at UM. She is very, I'm not even saying type A. Like she is just, if I want something done, it's going to get done. I'm going to, either someone else is going to do it or I'll get it done. That's how she is. I'm not as great at getting things done as she is, but in this world, I run this. When I want something to get done, it gets done. Even on the radio show, I was in control. I didn't really let, as much as Defo likes to wander, I wasn't going to let him go too far. This something has to get done. It's going to get done. Okay. That's not how this works. When you're dealing with contractors, even contractors, and you've seen their work prior, it's fun because either it takes them a long time to do it, or even when they do it, literally they started working on this kitchen the week after we bought it. Okay. As of last week, 5 weeks later, it was supposed to be done in 2 weeks. 5 weeks later, we were still finding things wrong. It's a fun thing. So they either don't do the work or when they do it, it's wrong. So that's fun. On top of that, you have work, you have life, you have things. We just went on a trip. So all the unpacking, the putting up, the nesting or the getting ready in the home, you want it done like that. Does not happen. No. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. So we're a little over a month in and we're finally in and it finally feels like a home. So I appreciate everyone who's gone through this journey with us. I understand no one gives a shit. If it was someone else's house, I probably wouldn't give that much of a shit. But it's been my world. You can hear it. Like the room's hollow because there's nothing in it. I have these shelves behind me, which is an improvement from the fucking crib that I had behind me for a goddamn year. So we're stepped up, but it's still hollow because I don't have floor. So to peel the curtain back, this is where we are. Defo is in Nassau. I think he's in, I don't know where the fuck he is. I'm not going to lie to you. Last Monday, I get back. So when did he get back? Tuesday. I get back Tuesday. He's like, all right, I'm leaving. I'm like, of course you are. So he's in the Bahamas. He'll be back this week. Thank God. And we will have a full-fledged Peel Yourself Off the Map Monday. Pigskin Playbook. John Congemi will join us. Brett Tessler will join us at 7:30. John Congemi will join all of us at 8. It was a football-filled weekend to an extent. No college football. That'll start back up this Friday. Thank goodness. And we'll get bowl season, which we love here on the Defo Show. No Defo, just Lubie here. You had the NBA rocking on, and both South Florida teams don't look good right now. The Heat haven't looked good the entire year. Every time they get a nice win, where the Clippers was the game people thought they could lose, and they fought back and they won. Jimmy Butler played well. They play maybe the worst team in the league or bottom 3 in the Spurs and lose. The Miami Dolphins setting the world on fire. Had won 5 in a row. Or 8-3. I think they won 5 in a row. We're 8-3. Play a Niners team that's good and playing really well. They lose their quarterback, have a third stringer in there. It feels like the Dolphins will win that. The Dolphins get demolished, lose by double digits. Then they play the Chargers, who are a good team. They're 500. Justin Herbert is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They have a lot of names on defense, but they're never healthy. And I love Derwin James. He's a no, but he's always hurt. Like the dude's always hurt. Joey Bosa, a South Florida kid, great player, always hurt. They're missing both of them in this game, and the Chargers have a legit offense, but it's not like it's a juggernaut. Justin Herbert does have the propensity to get flustered and turn the ball over, and he's not good in fourth quarters. He's just not. Like, he wants to take the chance to make the big play, and it backfires more times than not for him. Well, it didn't yesterday. The Tua, who's as accurate, he is, I think, the most accurate quarterback in the league. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league finally this year. Their offense is one of the best in the league. The problem is what they like to do, everyone knows now. They like to use the middle of the field, and that's fine. People knew it before, but when you have a healthy Tyreek Hill, a healthy Jalen Waddle, when you have a healthy Teron Armstead, when you have a healthy Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert, there's only so much you can do to stop it. The problem is now teams really are like, screw you. We're going to block the middle off, which is what the Niners did and the Chargers did last night. You're going to make you work the sidelines, which are harder. Jalen Waddle is not healthy. He played, but he's not healthy. Teron Armstead played, but is not healthy. Jeff Wilson Jr., the running back who come over from the Niners and was playing really well, gets hurt in the first half. So now you don't have a run game. And teams are allowed to key in on Tua. And we've seen what Tua is when he's getting hit. He's not good. It's not even that he's not good for him. He's just not good. I mean, last week wasn't all on him versus the Niners, but he did not play well. Yesterday, he played horrendous. And now, again, he was getting hit a lot. They only got 2 sacks because he gets rid of the ball. But he's getting hit a lot. He's getting hit early. And because of that, he now knows he can't just sit there. And because a lot of the times they wanted stuff, it's either quick or if it's down the field, it takes time to develop. Well, if the defense knows that they're going to key in on the receivers, which is what we saw, that they let the Chargers be really physical last night, which we haven't seen. Like, you haven't seen the defense be physical in like 5 to 10 years. The NFL doesn't want that. The Chargers were allowed to get away with a lot early in that game. And what does that do? Well, that means you have to get rid of the ball. It takes a little longer to get rid of it. Well, if they're bringing pressure, you don't have time to take longer. And Tua had the clock in his head, and he was trying to get rid of it quickly. And passes were not coming out well. When he was 3 of 17, what he finished at was not better. He was 10 of 28, which is the worst for him, I think, of this year. And it was one of the worst quarterback percentages of the season. His halftime percentage at 25% was the worst of any quarterback this entire year. And Tua is known for his accuracy. Whatever you want to say before this year, let alone this year, he's known for his accuracy. He was getting hit. His receivers were not open. The one thing we've seen this year with Mike McDaniel's scheming is receivers running wide open, like it's college, like it's Oklahoma versus Texas Tech. No, or Ohio State or Alabama, where the receivers just run wide open. We've seen that all year. We did not see that last night. They not only weren't running wide open, except for the one Tyreek Hill touchdown, they weren't open at all. There was no room. And I get it. A good quarterback throws a receiver open. Well, if they're blanketed, you really can't throw a receiver open. So it was only so much Tua's fault. He was getting hit, and receivers weren't open. There was only so much he could do, and he didn't. Last week where he had 3 turnovers, he didn't want to have turnovers, and he didn't have any turnovers last night. So, but he still did miss some guys, and he was rattled, and he wasn't good. He wasn't, and Justin Herbert was. Justin Herbert got hit a lot. He got hit just as much as Tua, but his receivers were open. Like, that's the thing. The Dolphins' defensive line has finally woken up. Phillips played well. Wilkins played really well. They got after Herbert, but their linebackers are an atrocity. Their secondary sucks. Like, even Xavier Howard, who has been the number 1 guy, we know he's dealing with an injury, so he probably shouldn't be out there. And he doesn't have a second guy. Kohu is like a 4th guy. That other guy, the Justin whatever guy, is like a 5th guy. They're missing their second guy. They're missing their starting safety in Brandon Jones, who actually was playing well. I think he was coming back, but I don't think he came back yet. So Howard's by himself. So a guy that's our number 1 that's hurt, all the pressure's on him. And he doesn't look good. And the secondary looks horrendous. And their linebackers are a joke. Like, Jalen Phillips isn't a linebacker. You see what Jalen Phillips likes to do. He likes to rush the passer. Bradley Chubb is not a linebacker. You see what he likes to do. He likes to rush the passer. They don't have linebackers. Baker's Like, you're seeing the runs run wide open. You're seeing tight ends run wide open. You're seeing receivers run wide open. That's the difference between Herbert and Tua is Herbert was getting hit last night, but at least his receivers were open, wide open. Tua's receivers were not. So you saw it. Herbert was 39 of 51 for 367 yards, a touchdown. He did get sacked 4 times because Herbert, unlike Tua, holds onto the ball forever. He doesn't get rid of the ball. And that hurts him a lot of the time. Tua will get rid of it. He's not going to sit there and take hits. But one team won and one team lost. And the team that won was the Chargers. The Chargers now are 7-6, actually just a game behind the Dolphins, where the Dolphins had a 2-game lead on everyone. Now the Dolphins, I think, still hold the 6th spot in the AFC playoff picture, but they're only a game up on the Chargers, who now have the tiebreaker, who beat them head-to-head. So a very interesting weekend of NFL action. Again, we get the bowl season started this Friday. NBA is in full swing. You had around the NFL, the Niners, Chuba. I say Chuba because he was a former Knoll. His big brother, Brock Purdy, is now the starting quarterback for the Niners, and he's doing a hell of a job. Now, Deebo Samuel goes out, gets carted off, but it's not a broken ankle, so it's just a high ankle sprain, so you would think 2 to 4 weeks. They dominate. They demolished the Bucs, even after Samuel got hurt. I mean, Purdy, now they have a really good line, and they run the ball, and the addition of McCaffrey with Kittle, even without a Samuel, they have weapons on offense, and their defense is playing. I think it's the number 1 rated defense, and it's playing like it. The Niners are scary right now, and Tom Brady looked like shit. Tom Brady looks old, finally. Like, we predicted it for a decade, so eventually time's going to prove you right. Brady looks old. Their defense is and the Niners demolished the Bucs, and the Bucs now sit there wondering what they're going to do, and the Niners, even without Deebo Samuel, they have a quarterback controversy because their offense never looked this crisp with Jimmy G. This dude was literally the last pick in the draft. He's a 7th-round pick. These guys don't start in the NFL. If they get a chance to start, they're not successful. You don't consider them starting quarterbacks. Brock Purdy looked good, and he looked good versus the Dolphins, but to me, a lot of the time, it's weird. A backup can come in and just ruin everything, or because the defense wasn't ready for the backup can't come in and steal the show because the defense, it just isn't sure what to do. Well, the Bucs, who have a good defense, their defense isn't as great as it's been, but it's a good defense, had a week to prepare for Brock Purdy. So you're thinking, okay, this is it. This is when they're going to show who he really is. Yeah, they did, maybe, because he was electric. Like, he was doing stuff. Jimmy G's he doesn't mess up, but he doesn't do anything. He just gets you through. Purdy made some plays. And we saw him at Iowa State. Like, that's, people were explaining, I was like, who's Brock Purdy? They're like, well, he's this guy. I'm like, I was joking. I know who Brock Purdy is. He was at Iowa State. He was at Iowa State for like 12 years. He was really good at Iowa State, but he wasn't an NFL quarterback. He wasn't going to be an NFL quarterback, and he was drafted as such. But he's doing a lot of the same things where he makes the smart play, the right play. Then he can also make the big play if he has to. And the Niners look sort of scary right now. A team that we saw in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. 3 years ago we saw them in the Super Bowl. I think 3 years ago we saw them in the Super Bowl. Last year we saw them in the NFC title game, inching toward the Super Bowl. They're a team that's loaded, and they are running. And they have a quarterback that stays out of the way, but actually makes things happen. So the Niners are sort of interesting. Another game that was sort of big for the Dolphins, Jets-Bills. Jets do lose to the Bills. The Bills extend their lead now up 2 games in the AFC East, but the Jets do fall back a game, which I guess in the playoff picture is important. I don't know. Look, it feels like we're still a little bit away from the playoffs, but the Dolphins are now 8-5. There are 4 games left, and the next one feels like they had this road trip where they had these 3 games, and two seem like pretty big losses. Going to the Niners, who are playing good football, and going to the Bills. The Chargers were the one game that felt like, okay, the Chargers are a solid team, but they're a team that's had issues. They were coming off a loss to the Raiders, who aren't good, and felt like, okay, this is the game the Dolphins have to get without they lost that game. So I don't know where you are. Look, it's year 1 of McDaniel. We thought going into the season, the playoffs should be an expectation, should be a goal and an expectation getting there. Then they started playing really well. Then I was like, oh, okay, so they can make the playoffs, win in the playoffs, and who knows how far they could go. I think we overshot it with that. I think the reality is, I think 10, 11 wins was my target. They're still on track for 10, 11 wins. They probably will lose to the Bills, be 8-6. But those last 3 games versus Jets, the Patriots, and the Packers are all winnable. Whether it's at home or on the road, they're all winnable games. They're all games that they may be the favorite in those games. They win those, they win 11 games. You win 11 games, that is a success for year 1. That is a team that should make the playoffs, and that's a team that may actually win a game in the playoffs. So they're still on track. It's not like I'm going to run for the hills. It's just the last 2 games, we've now seen defenses change what they're doing against this highfalutin, high-powered offense, high-flying offense, and the offense has struggled mightily. Yes, and the Niners have a great defense. The Chargers don't. The Chargers defense has talent, but again, they're missing guys. So the defense has been underwhelming. They're one of the worst rush defenses in the league. The Dolphins couldn't run at all. Their pass defense is okay, but not great. And the Dolphins couldn't move the ball. They couldn't. It was 3 and outs. Tua was getting hit. Tua didn't look good. The receivers were not open. And you're getting to that part of the season where you're supposed to be cleaning things up. The Dolphins look like everything's falling apart. So Mike McDaniel, it's year 1, but now he's going to be put to the test as an offensive guru. They figured you out, right? That's the name of the game. You do something on offense, the defense figures it out. You do something on offense, the defense figures it out. You do something on offense, the defense figures it out. Okay, well, the defenses have figured it out. What is Mike McDaniel going to do next so that the defenses are caught off guard again? Because right now, we're working it over the middle with Hill and Waddle and Gesicki and Sherfield and Wilson and the running backs was a great idea, and it worked really well for the majority of the season. Now, 2 teams in a row that are like, yeah, we're not giving you the middle of the field. Good luck. And the Dolphins have been stymied. I mean, last night was bad. Their offense looked horrendous. And it wasn't all Tua. Tua wasn't good. Tua was not good. But he was getting hit and his receivers were covered. Like, the idea, again, is to throw your receivers open. But if they're blanketed in coverage, you could throw the perfect ball. Yeah, 1 out of every 3 will get caught, but the other 2 will get missed. That's 33%. That's horrible. Like, if the receiver in the NFL, you don't usually get wide open, but you should have a step. There wasn't a step. They were a little physical in a way that we don't allow usually in the NFL these days. But Asante Samuel Jr., the Davis kid, they were literally all over the Dolphins all game long. And it showed. The Dolphins struggled. So we'll see if Mike McDaniel can scheme something up. Coming up next, we'll talk with a man who represents one of the key cogs on the Miami Dolphins, Brett Tessler, agent to the Stars and agent to Raheem Mostert. Dolphins now starting tailback. I guess he was the starting tailback, splitting snaps with Jeff Wilson Jr., who's going to be out for a while. He left the game yesterday, which wasn't good. The Dolphins needed him, and he was not there. Mostert tried his best, but that line is not good. It's a struggle, and we've seen that all year long. And I guess last night, even though they were playing one of the worst rush defenses, it didn't matter. The Dolphins were not good. And we'll talk with Brett Tessler coming up next about that. It's a Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill Monday. Pigskin Playbook is brought to you. Pigskin Playbook with John Congemi is brought to you by the Big Chill Key Largo with one and only John Congemi. Thank you to Jimmy Johnson's. So we will talk with John Congemi at 8 o'clock. Appreciate everyone that's come with me this morning. Defo is fine, I think. I got a text from him yesterday. Something about, I don't know. Oh, him and we talk about his bets with Francesco. His buddy Francesco was having he still is having a rough weekend because he was 0 for 6. And then he had the Dolphins. So we saw that they got annihilated. So I think, was 0 for 7. Francesco. The Defo started out a strong weekend. It's going to keep going for him in Nassau, the Bahamas, Atlantis. And we'll keep going with you next here. The Defo Show without Defo, just Lubie on South Florida Live. Coming up next, we'll talk with the one and only Brett Tessler, the agent to the Stars.
Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. You know, since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
The simple pleasures of this job, the way a stadium sounds when one of my players performs well on the field, the way we are meant to protect them in health and in injury. Less money, more attention, caring for them, caring for ourselves in the games, too.
The agent to the Stars, the one and only Brett Tessler.
Welcome back, one and all, to the Defo Show with the Lubie. No Defo, just Lubie here on South Florida Live. We talk to the gentleman each and every week. We need to Will and Trust Attorney Michael D. Wild. Appreciate the one and only Brett Tessler's time this morning. Good morning, Brett. How you doing?
Hey, doing good, Luke. Thanks.
So by now, everyone's heard that Defo finally ended his streak of no Panthers game, thanks to you. And the Panthers got a dominant victory. So just a heads up, not for one to snore on air, but we do this all the time, so I'm going to join in. Feel free to invite me. You know, if you ever have an extra ticket, I love the Panthers too. So thank you, Tessman, for joining us. I want to get right to it. You do represent Raheem Mostert. It's been tough sledding for them the last couple of weeks. What was your impression of the Dolphins game yesterday versus the Chargers? What was his actually? What did he have to say?
Well, I didn't talk to him after the game.
Okay.
Obviously, in many cases I would if there's something that needs to be discussed. If one of my guys might have had any type of injury or anything you're not sure of, if anything happens that you need clarification on. I think what we saw was pretty straightforward, and I'm sure he probably wasn't interested in talking about it after, and they had a long trip home, so he and I will circle back today. But, what I saw is what I've seen most of the season, which is a team that knows that it doesn't really have the wherewithal to establish a consistent running game, just due to the fact that, in order to run, there has to be holes. And so when you see, it didn't matter which running back it was, whether it was Jeff Wilson for the last couple of weeks, whether it's Mostert, whether it's, the other kid they brought in there for a run or two last night, there's really not much room for these guys to operate. And so, you saw the one run where Wilson got a little bit of space and was able to, pick up maybe, 10, 12 yards. And then you saw a run like that Mostert was able to, maybe pick up a dozen yards where he actually had a little bit of room. So, the job that McDaniel has done with his personnel is nothing short of genius, just because when you realize you don't have the offensive line unit that most teams would need to have to succeed, you got to do things like fake those handoffs to Mostert on the sweep that they do all the time, which kind of freezes a defense because they have to honor his speed. And then you've got Tua getting rid of the ball in about, 2 seconds every play on those quick hit, crossing routes that early in the year, when the timing was down, the accuracy was down, everything else, these were very successful plays. And in the last couple of weeks, for whatever reason, Tua's been a little bit off the mark, and just things just aren't clicking the way they were earlier on when the team had all the success. I don't know if it's a case of, teams have had enough film now, opponents have had enough film now to study, to be able to kind of know exactly what to expect. But, as far as like being able to run like a well-balanced offense with a straight up running game, with a dominant offensive line that's able to, win at the point of attack, they're able to open seams, they're able to, win their one-on-one matchups. I don't think that's going to be happening here. So, McDaniel's doing an amazing job, and, the rest of the guys are doing what they can. And, the running backs are taking what's there, if anything, and Tua has had a great season. And, it's just when you play that kind of passing game that requires that level of precision, that level of timing, that level of perfection, if any little thing ends up getting knocked off, it kind of throws the whole thing out of whack. And that's sort of what we've seen in the last couple of weeks.
Well, and then a couple of things. McDaniel came in saying that as much as he's offensive guru guy, his offense is based around the run. Like, he was pretty honest about that. That's why he went out and got Mostert and Wilson, two guys he's really familiar with. And that's why it was imperative they went and got Armstead, a guy who is good at blocking for the pass and the run. And they have yet to really get the run established this year. Wilson with Mostert was a nice combo and it was doing better. But like you said, we've talked about this a lot. They haven't been able to get the run established. So the pass has worked, and what we've seen the last couple of weeks, and they keep talking about this in the broadcast. And Defo and I sort of mock color analysts, but they've been right on this part, is both the Niners and now the Chargers have found a way to disrupt the middle. Like Tua and Hill and Waddle and even the running backs and Gesicki and Sherfield and Wilson were eating up the middle. And what the defense have said, no, you can't run. So we're not going to worry about that. And we're not going to let you have the middle. And we've seen Tua get pressured, and we've seen Tua be off. And the receivers now last night, I mean, there was just no room. And that's what we see. That's what we see in football, right? Like, you see the offense come up with something, the defense catches up. So McDaniel is a supposed guru. Now it's his turn. I'm just curious what he can do when the running game is supposed to be such a big part of his offense and it's null and void.
Yeah, and that's what's going to be interesting to see as they go down the stretch, because there's only so many things you can do.
Yeah.
Different coaches, different teams have different possibilities at their disposal as it relates to what their personnel allows them to do. And so that's why they've had to rely on the quick hit, dink and dunk type game. Obviously, the downfield passing has just been way off, either in terms of accuracy, receivers and quarterback not being on the same page. You saw a couple plays last night where it looked like Tua put the ball in pretty catchable areas, one with Waddle, one with Hill, and it seemed like those guys were totally oblivious to where the ball was. And so, you wonder what could have happened if, those guys were able to make some of those plays and seemingly good throws. And then there's the throw early on where you see the receiver have to try to come back for the ball, and in that case, it allowed the defensive back to come back into the play. We've seen that, a good amount of times this year. So just everything is just a little bit off right now. And so the things that were, working at a very close margin, some of the tight windows, some of the perfect timing things that you saw when things were clicking. Now those things are about, just a hair off. And so again, that's all it takes in this league. And, the reality is, Lubie, these coaches get paid an awful lot of money to be able to, I'm talking about opposing coaches, to study what teams do. And so it's no different than the success you saw Tony Sperano have when the Dolphins sort of reinvented the Wildcat. And they beat a great, a championship caliber Patriots team. And it was just an act of brilliance, just at the right time to come up with the right thing that team needed to do to cover up for their other deficiencies, the fact that they couldn't run any type of a traditional offense. Well, what McDaniel's doing is, again, he's doing whatever he can to try to freeze the defense for a half a second. He's doing what he can to get the ball out of Tua's hands as quickly as possible, which is a very, very good idea when you look at some of the personnel in front there. And so it is what it is. And, at this point, maybe the league's adjusting to it. Maybe McDaniel comes up with, a new idea. But I think everybody would agree he's done an amazing job. Tua obviously is having a career season when it looked, in years in the past, is this guy even an NFL quarterback? And so, now the fact that this guy is, been discussed as a Pro Bowler type guy, an MVP type candidate, it's really a testament to the amazing work that's being done down here. But as they say, in time, water finds its level. And so we'll find out what that level is. We'll see if they're able to get things back on track and they're really the team that you've seen over much of the last couple months, or whether they're the team we've seen over the last couple weeks. And that's something that I'm sure everybody who's a fan of this team is very anxiously awaiting to find out.
Well, and it's what we see when it comes to sports. I mean, it's all about expectations, right? Like going into the season, because of all the moves, people expected, the Dolphins should be better. The Dolphins could be a playoff team. But the problem is they won like 5 in a row. The offense and Tua and Hill and Waddle became an electric show. So it felt like, oh, wow, maybe this team has Super Bowl aspirations. And I wouldn't say that's not the case, but I think it's more in the middle somewhere where they're not as bad as we saw when they went through that losing streak. They're not as good as they were when they went through the 5-game winning streak. And they're not as bad as they've been the last couple of weeks. It's like you said, Mick McDaniel is a guy that people really think highly of around the league. So the other teams are catching up. Now it's his turn. Now he's in check. Now he needs to get himself without going to checkmate. And I actually, he's done it enough this year that I believe in him. And every time that they've been sort of thwarted, he's come up with the next move. And now we'll see what they have. I think they are a playoff team, and I think that doesn't change. I just think the AFC is good, and the Chargers are a legit team. And outside of Brandon Staley not knowing what to do on fourth downs, he is a good defensive mind, and we saw that on display last night. And the Niners have the best defense in football. We saw that on display a couple of weeks ago.
Yep, and so here's what I would say. The difference between the great teams, the truly dominant teams in this league, have the sort of philosophy of, you can know what we're going to do, and there's still nothing you can do to stop it.
Yep.
In terms of, if a team has a dominant running game, like you look at what Tennessee's been able to do with Derrick Henry, everybody knows where that ball's going, but it doesn't matter because the offensive line has done such a good job, you know, in the run blocking that they're able to win their matchups. And Chris Henry is just going to run it right up your, you know what? And so I'm sorry, Derrick Henry's going to run it right, you know. So it's one of those things where I don't think the Dolphins have that type of dominance up front where they can really establish that game where they could just say, listen, you know, we're going to hand, you know, like what you saw in San Francisco, where Kyle Shanahan and obviously Mike McDaniel came from, where the running game is really what carries that team. They win the game running the ball and playing great defense. And that's how you saw them get to the Super Bowl when Mostert was the championship game MVP and carried the team to the Super Bowl. And so, you know, Jimmy Garoppolo, good solid quarterback. Brock Purdy looks like, you know, could be a good solid quarterback. I mean, he didn't throw for 400 yards yesterday, but he did exactly what he needed to do. And so McDaniel comes from that school of running the football. It's just, again, you can only do what your personnel allows you to do. And so the definition of insanity is to repeat the same thing over and over and expect there to be change. The thing, in my opinion, that makes McDaniel so special is the fact that, you know, he came in here and was willing to adapt. So many coaches are not willing to adapt to what their team has. They try to force the team to adapt to what they want to do, whether the people there are capable of adapting or not. And so McDaniel's flexibility is just remarkable, what he's designed. And again, it's something that's worked very well for this team. It's worked very well for Tua. Tua has been the perfect guy to execute what it is that McDaniel wants to do, because again, man, when things were clicking, it was a thing of absolute beauty. I mean, you know, Tua could not be more accurate, you know, could not have had the ability to find some of the windows and get the ball there exactly at the right time. That's not easy to do. You know, the same way that, you know, some quarterbacks like a Justin Herbert has the ability to throw the ball 75 yards in the air. Other quarterbacks aren't blessed with that. But what Tua does, there's a lot of those guys who could throw the ball 75 yards that wouldn't be capable of clicking in the scheme that McDaniel has been running. So it's been a great thing down here. It's been very, very exciting. I mean, there's really, really light at the end of the tunnel. If the team's not a Super Bowl team this year, at least you could say that, you know what, with the weapons they have on offense, with, you know, some of the things they've been able to do with one hand tied behind the back, you know, if they wind up bolstering that unit this offseason and, you know, they're able to, you know, draft some good players who, you know, you got to hit on those guys. You know, they've tried and they just haven't got the right guys. But, you know, if you wind up hitting on those guys and you wind up turning that unit into a dominant one, now it allows McDaniel to unlock an entirely different facet of the offense. And once you allow him to do what he's been doing up to this point, but now you let him to do, you make it able for him to do 100 different things, both in the run game, passing game. Now is where it gets scary and where it almost could be unstoppable. And, you know, he's just the kind of coach that can do that.
Well, and that's the thing is, first of all, I don't think this season's done as of yet. And I think, like you're talking about, he's been able to figure things out with hands and appendages tied behind his back. I don't think that's going to stop now, but it is year one. And that's what this is. Tua's first year in this offense, and he's already put himself in discussion as a top 10 quarterback at times, top 5 quarterback. So just think, when their offensive line was bad, like people, you don't go from bad to great as an offensive line. You can go from bad to average, which is what they've done. Armstead, left tackle. Connor Williams has been good at center. Hunt's a good guard, but you still need another guard and you need another tackle. Like Austin Jackson, Eichenberg are not the answer. So you can fill those spots, which you can. In one offseason, you can get a guard and a tackle. It's hard to get all 5 positions, but you can get a guard and a tackle. They need a linebacker. They need a corner. They need a safety. Again, one offseason, you can fill 5-6 spots. And that's where they are now, where they're a playoff team. And it feels like they're going to contend. And this is year one. So to me, the sky's the limit. And we're so used to being negative with the Dolphins. I'm not happy with the last couple of weeks. But I think this season's a lot more fun than we've seen. And the future's bright. What's interesting to me, and it's what I like talking to you about, because so often you represent a lot of the guys that are unsung, don't get a lot of credit coming out of college, and find a way, and a lot of times become very successful. You brought up his name. The Brock Purdy story is very interesting to me, because he wasn't some unknown. Like, he was really good at Iowa State, and it felt like he was there for 25 years. And so he wasn't some random. Like, a lot of us who watch college football have heard of Brock Purdy and saw Brock Purdy, but he wasn't an NFL quarterback. He wasn't a guy that was going to play in the NFL. Well, maybe he is because, yeah, he wasn't spectacular yesterday, but he was good. And he did exactly what they needed when they needed it. If he needed a big play, he did it. And if he needed to stay the hell out of the way and give it to Christian McCaffrey, he did. And what's interesting to me is a lot of people thought, would the Niners be derailed when Purdy's in there? They look better when he's in there. Like, you've been around these guys, and I've talked to you so often about how you keep these guys' spirits up when people are just lambasting them. How hard is it to get a guy that's Mr. Irrelevant to be this successful on game day like this when the world has sort of forgotten he exists?
This is an example of where sometimes these NFL teams and their scouting departments end up being their own worst enemies. Because, the reality is Brock Purdy in college, all he did was produce.
Yes.
And, Tom Brady at Michigan, all he did was produce. It's just that sometimes these scouts get a little too caught up in the measurables, the height, weight, speed, body type, pure arm strength. And so this is how you see guys who had very successful college careers not really get the respect they deserve entering the NFL. And then there's other examples of guys who had nothing careers. Obviously, some of those guys are guys like Blake Bortles, who, is okay at UCF. Obviously, what's his name, who's the backup for the 49ers? The Jaguars drafted him high. The hell's his name? Came out of Missouri.
Missouri. Oh, yeah. I know. I can't remember his name. It's so funny.
It's slipping my mind. But anyway.
The list is long and long, yeah.
That's it. So, those are the examples of guys who get taken. And then there's other examples where it works, like a Josh Allen, who didn't necessarily have the most stellar career at Wyoming. And that's an example of a guy who did kind of figure things out and the light went on. And obviously he's one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the league. So, it's one of those things where these teams in some cases just overlook the guy who's not the tall guy that they want, isn't as athletic as maybe some of the other guys at the combine, doesn't have the pure arm strength to throw the ball 70 yards in the air. And so that's how sometimes every once in a while these guys slip through. And in the case of Brady, that's how a guy like him ends up getting passed over by every team in the league 6 times over. And so that's just kind of the way it's been, and it's probably the way it'll continue to be. Sometimes these scouts just fall in love with the measurables, fall in love with the upside, and then it kind of allows these guys to slide down to the end of the draft, or in some cases not get drafted at all.
Well, and the other side of this, and there's always something that is an interesting part of a career, is when is the end? Now, Defo and I have thought the end for Tom Brady was in like 2008. So we were very wrong. And he's proved us wrong time and time again. And again, outside of yesterday and some other moments, he still looked good this year. It hasn't all been on him. I mean, their offensive line is in shambles, and we know what he is when he has pressure. He's never been he's not a runner. So he ducks and covers. Their defense hasn't been the same, different coaching. So it's not all on him, but he is starting to look his age. I'm curious, as an agent, when it gets to that part of a career, what is your involvement in saying, John, I mean, what are we doing? What do you do? What is your involvement in that next phase of a player's career? Like, do you actually bring it up? Do you talk about it, or do you let them come to you?
Sure. No, it's something we discuss. By the way, Blaine Gabbert, who we were talking about earlier.
Good for you.
But in regards to Tom Brady and what he should do, I mean, I'm pretty sure Tom Brady has earned the right to do whatever he wants to do. There's still a place in the league for him. I mean, even though he and his team are not having as much success as you've seen in the past, how much of that is actually his fault? I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback have more big, deep balls get dropped this year. I'm talking from Hall of Fame type receivers, 60 yards down the air, down the field on busted coverages, where balls are just, coming right down into their hands and they dropped it. So, that happens, I guess, to every quarterback. Just, it's pretty clear things are just a little bit off there in Tampa Bay. And sort of like, the Rams, who were designed to win the one Super Bowl, they went all in there. That's kind of the case of what you're seeing there in Tampa Bay in terms of defense and other areas, offensive line. They've been decimated by injuries. And so, that's, the running game hasn't been great. So it's just kind of a combination of factors. But when I watch Tom Brady, I still see Tom Brady. I still see a guy who's able to, get the ball where it needs to go. But, playing under duress has never been his strong suit. He's not a Russell Wilson. He's not a Lamar Jackson. He's not one of these guys who, he's not a Josh Allen. He's not one of these guys where when things break down, he's able to improvise and create and kill a team with his feet. So, if things aren't operating the way they're intended, a guy like him is going to have a little bit of a harder time. And frankly, as somebody who's been a big fan of him and his career, he's a treasure. And fans of this league just don't realize what they're watching. It's no different than if your grandpa told you that, he watched Otto Graham or he watched some of these other absolute just legends. Icons. And so, we're so fortunate that he's still playing. And again, he still played at a high level. Let's not forget him. It's just a couple of years ago, the guy won the Super Bowl. And so, we're just lucky to have him. It's just something that should be enjoyed. And I know that fans like to talk and, with social media, everybody likes to have an opinion and everyone's an expert and everyone's, trying to, be more of a troll than the next guy. But the reality is Tom Brady's a very proud athlete. He understands that it's going to come to an end at some point. And so in the case of a guy like him, he'll be the first to know when he's not able to do what he needs to do to help a team win. And if he were the reason why that team wasn't winning, there would be no discussion about him playing next year. I think it would be understood by everybody, starting with him, that this would be the end. But truthfully, when you watch the state of quarterback play around the league, Tom Brady at 50% of what he was is probably still better than about, 20 of the 32 quarterbacks in the league. So, in my opinion, I see no indication that it's, that he's washed up or he's a shot fighter or anything like that. I think that, he definitely, still has gas left in the tank. And again, as somebody who loves football, man, I just cherish every opportunity I get to watch him. It's frustrating to see him at this juncture of his career being in a situation where I don't think that team would be winning, regardless who their quarterback is. I think you could take any of the 32 quarterbacks in the league. You could take Mahomes. You could take Josh Allen. You could take Jalen Hurts. I don't think anybody's winning big on that team this year. So it's not his fault, but there's other instances where, yes, if you have a client, especially one that's been decimated by injuries or has a, dangerous condition, whether it be, concussion type thing, a neck type thing, the kind of thing where it's simply just not safe for them to continue to play. In those instances, as an agent, you better believe you have those conversations. And ultimately, I pride myself in representing intelligent guys and, the kind of guys that you don't necessarily need to tell them the things that they should realize or they should know. So there's never really been an instance where, my guys and I haven't been on the same page as it relates to when it's time.
Well, talking about tough conversations, a conversation we all don't like to have necessarily, but a conversation we should have is talking about the next step in life, which is not life. And a guy that really can make it easy. He did it for Brett. He did it for Defo. At some point, I need to sit down with the one and only Michael D. Wild. Michael D. Wild will make your transition in life to the next phase for you and your family so easy. We are grateful for Michael D. Wild, and we know he does such a great job for people who are ready to really plan and face the tough conversations and do it in a smart way.
Yep. And that's, one thing I'm very happy about, as much as I enjoy coming on here every week and talking football. I really, like to kind of help people, and I pride myself as an agent in being somebody who's supposed to know the best car dealership to go to, the best restaurant to eat at. And in this case, it's great to be able to tell so many people out there the absolute best estate planning attorney in South Florida, and that's Michael Wild. And you can find him at southfloridawills.com. He's just done the work for so many people down here. And again, it's an instance where there's never been anybody who I have referred to him that wasn't thrilled, just both in terms of the quality of his work, how quick the process ended up being, and, you know, how affordable it was too. And it's just one of those things where once you get it taken care of, it takes such a weight off your back. If you haven't got your estate plans taken care of, reach out to Michael Wild, southfloridawills.com.
Tess, man, appreciate you joining us once again. Good luck to Raheem. Send our best to him. And we look forward to future conversations each and every week talking about the Dolphins and the NFL at large. The one and only Brett Tessler. Thanks a lot, Brett. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Lubie.
Talk later. The one and only Brett Tessler, everyone. He joins us each and every week right here. Thank you to Will and Trust Attorney Michael D. Wild. Coming up next, we will go full Pigskin Playbook with the one and only John Congemi. Thank you to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. The Defo Show, no Defo, just Lubie here on South Florida Live. More to come on this Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday on South Florida Live.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently, we realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business. And the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752. Would you go into court without an attorney? So why would you go up against an insurance company without Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa? 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Give them a call at 954-809-8752. Why go up against insurance companies alone when you can have Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa on your side?
Mr. Congemi, were you a member of the Corleone family? Did you serve under capo regime under Vito Corleone, also known as the Godfather?
I never knew no Godfather.
Mr. Congemi, you are contradicting a sworn statement you previously made to me and signed. I ask you again, sir, here and now under oath, were you at any time a member of a crime organization headed by Michael Corleone?
I don't know nothing about that. Oh, I was in the olive oil business with his father, but that was a long time ago, that's all.
We have a sworn affidavit. We have it. Your sworn affidavit that you murdered on the orders of Michael Corleone. Do you deny this confession?
Look, the FBI guys, they promised me a deal. So I made up a lot of stuff about Michael Corleone, because that's what they wanted. But it was all lies. Everything. And I kept saying, Michael Corleone did this, and Michael Corleone did that. So I said, yeah, sure. Why not?
It's now time for the Defo Show.
I didn't know you were leaving till you walked out the door.
Again, big thank you to Brett Tessler, the man we dubbed the Agent of the Stars, for joining us as he does each and every Monday. Set to hopefully soon be joined by the one and only Pigskin Playbook man himself, also formerly Dateline Dolphins, John Congemi. Thank you to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. He'll be joining me in just a second. He's a man who covered college football for over 2 decades for ESPN. He now still covers the NFL for CBS 4 down here, an original Dolphin insider, and a man we are lucky to have and privileged to have each and every week and not call a friend. And again, thank you to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. We welcome Mr. Finsider himself, the one and only John Congemi. Good morning, John. How you doing?
Good morning, Lubie. What's happening, man? Everything good?
Everything's rolling along, my friend. No Defo, just me. So we're actually keeping to time. So sorry if I got to you on time this week. You're used to that 5 to 10 minute Defo cushion.
That's right.
Without Defo, the train runs on time instead of running a New York minute. So I appreciate you joining us. Before we get into any of the muck, I asked Brett this, and I want to ask you, as a guy who's played football a long time, covered college, high school, college, and the NFL a long time, what was your first impression in general of yesterday's Dolphins game?
That the Dolphins are getting figured out a little bit, I believe, on offense. I think the defense is pretty good. It was bend, not break, because it could have been worse.
Yeah.
But, I just think that teams are starting to make adjustments on how to combat the speed off the line of scrimmage and how to battle with the motion and matchups. And they're gaining more depth off the line of scrimmage. They're crowding Tyreek, his release off the line of scrimmage. And I think it's throwing off the synergy where the ball was coming out with ease for 2 months and guys were wide open. And now it's creating hesitation and delay, and the timing just isn't there. And I think the Dolphins, even though it might look uglier, need to kind of change course and get a little bit more hard-headed about running the football, checking it down, throwing some meaningless plays that may get you 4 or 5 yards, but it's going to put you in 3rd and 2s and 3rd and 4s. And instead of, throwing the football into a crowd and hoping that the big play is going to somehow resurface.
Well, and that's the thing is, and we've seen from Mike McDaniel to this point, he came in saying, and we saw what he did with San Francisco, the running game was going to be a big part of the offense. And early on, he realized, it might not work like I wanted. So as good to great coaches do, they put a game plan around the players they have, not the players they want. And that's great. But you're right. To have a successful offense, you need a balanced attack. And just because the rushing attack isn't working, what we're seeing is, okay, we're going to block the middle off. We're not going to let you run. What do you have for us? In the last 2 weeks, it's been a struggling Tua, who had the worst completion percentage at half of any quarterback this season, which is strange, especially for him, but he's probably
as good as he's been.
Especially with his accuracy. I mean, his one calling card is his accuracy. But NFL teams are not going to, they're disrupting that timing. We're seeing it. They were very physical last night with the receivers to a point where I was wondering, is this 1988? Like, when did Steve Atwater start playing secondary for the Chargers? But they were letting him get away with it, and you have to work with that. You brought up some of the things, because that's I don't know if I have concerns. Look, I think he's come to this point showing every time there's a nail in the fork in the road, he's figured it out. And I think he will. It's just, there's only so much you can figure out when you have a banged up offensive line, when you have a banged up Jeff Wilson Jr. who's doing a hell of a job, when it is year one, so things are already, going to take time. Like, what else you think he can do, and can they fix it on the fly here as the AFC is getting really tight in that playoff picture?
Well, the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo weather is going to fix it for the Miami Dolphins next week. I mean, there's going to be no high flying circus. You know, the tent's gone. I mean, it's going to be blown away in Orchard Park next week, and the weather's going to dictate what they can do. And it's going to be a back alley brawl type of thing, you know, where you have to, you know, go 3 and out, sometimes ugly, where you don't get a 3rd and 2 trying to run the football, or you misfire, or the ball kind of, you know, you can't control the velocity and the accuracy because of the elements. And you're going to have to figure out ways to generate plays and generate first downs. And that's going to happen organically, whether the Dolphins like it or not. I mean, you just watched the Bills play yesterday, and it wasn't pretty for much of that game. You know, there hadn't been a point scored almost up until halftime. And, you know, Buffalo found a way to I don't know if it's getting more disciplined, but they just figured out that it's going to be an ugly win, and we just have to be a little bit prettier than our opposition. And I think that's where the Dolphins are right now. They've been sexy, you know, for 2.5 months, and now the lipstick and makeup are going to go out the window, and the Dolphins have to figure out a way. And I think the defense, to some extent, has done that. You know, Christian Wilkins is playing as good or anybody in the National Football League. Jalen Phillips is coming with speed off of the edge. They're doing it even though it doesn't look like they're completely healthy in the secondary. You know, they're finding ways to stay in games. It's not like they're shutting people down, but they're definitely not letting opposing teams run away and hide with 2 touchdown leads. They're kind of staying in the game and giving the offense a chance, and they haven't responded in 2 weeks. Now, whether that's, you know, in the case of San Francisco, they went up against the number 1 defense in a lot of categories, and they did some things differently to kind of derail the Dolphins. But the Chargers were depleted on defense. They had 3 starters that didn't play in key positions and still found a way, with the experience of playing against Tyreek Hill all those years in Kansas City. I think that the Chargers had a way to slow him down enough and take everybody else out of the game and rattle the pocket just a bit. You know, the Dolphins had a couple of nice runs, but they ran for 36 yards in the first half, had 55 total yards. You know, the Chargers shut them down. But yet the Dolphins still had a chance to win the game. And it seems like the last couple of weeks, as poorly as the offense played, the San Francisco game, they had the ball at midfield with a chance to win. You know, last night, they're 1 score away. They get a chance to win. They kick the field goal. They almost get the onside kick and have a chance to do something there in the late in the game. So, hey, for all the poor talk about where the offense has been the last couple of weeks, they just need to be a little bit better. You know, maybe eliminate 1 bad play and find a way to kind of grind it out, because they're going to need to win ugly in Buffalo.
Well, and the funny thing is, and we're so used to, we're here in South Florida, especially, and you're by way of Ohio, but you're a South Floridian. You've been here long enough. We find ways to find the negative so often, and especially with this franchise. It's funny. I grew up and it was always a positive because I grew up in the Marino era, but it's been so long since then that we find the negative. And to me, I find myself, and maybe it's because they've been sexy and I like McDaniel, and I've always been a Tua backer, and he's finally playing the way I knew he could play. I'm finding the positive, and not silver linings, but there's still 4 games left. They're still in the playoffs right now. After this next game, the next 3 are all not only winnable, they should be favored. Even at New England, they still actually, outside of the weather, should be favored. Like,
yeah, it should be a 3-point, 4-point Dolphin lead.
Playoffs are there for them. To me, that's all you could add. Like, at this point in the season, before the year, I didn't get it. You play a season, so things change. But before the year, if you had told me that they'd be 8-5, but 9-6, 8-5, play in the playoff picture and have good records against all the other playoff opponents, if they win out after Buffalo, that they're probably in the playoffs, I'd be giddy. So to me, year 1, that's really all you can expect. It's just funny. We're so used to shifting our expectations that we heard the word Super Bowl So now, oh my God, they've lost 2 in a row. What are we going to do? McDaniel, Tua, oh my God. Every team has struggles in the season. We've seen that. Look at the Bills. The Bills look like they fell off a cliff for 2 or 3 straight weeks. Like, it happens. To me, you said, and that's the thing I've actually paid a lot of attention to, is they played horrible on offense, really, the last 2 weeks. And with a quarter of the fourth quarter left, they had a chance to win the game. Like, that's a different place than they've been in the past, where we were just written off the game. This team, Mike McDaniel and these guys don't. Like, to me, and that if they're doing that within the game, why wouldn't they do that the rest of the season?
Yeah, not only would we have written off the game in prior years, it would have been a 14 or 17 point deficit at some point. They would have found a way to lose that game by more than 2 touchdowns. Remember, Lubie, when we were going through the exercise with Jeff and, how many wins the Dolphins were going to have, and we were tallying these wins up. And I said in the beginning of the year, if the Dolphins go 2-2 out of the gate, first 4, they're going to be okay. Well, they were better than that. They were 3-1, I believe, after the first 4 weeks. And then I said they're going to go through a stretch where they're going to clean up on teams, because it just sets up that they're going to be average to mediocre to bad football teams that you're going to find a way to win. You may get a couple blowouts, but you may just find a way to win because you're better. And then they're going to hit the skids. They're going to hit a brick wall when they start to travel for these 3 games on the road. They're going to have to find a way to win one of them. If they can win one of those games, settle the ship, they're going to be okay. And they'll get to, at that time I said 10. When the Dolphins got on a real roll, I said, well, maybe they get to 11. I don't know. Yeah. We're back to reality, right? We're back to kind of where we thought, all of us talked about it, we thought the Dolphins would be. You're going to have to try to steal one against either San Fran or the Chargers. They didn't get that done. You kind of had the L column locked up traveling to Buffalo at that time of year. So maybe they do, maybe they don't. But if they don't, they're still in position to be able to win at home against Green Bay, go travel to New England, beat a very average Patriots team, and then come home to a much improved Jets team with a lot on the line. So I think it sets up for the Dolphins, especially for the Dolphin fans. It sets up to be a really exciting finish, maybe a little bit closer or nail-biting type of situation than you wanted, but it's going to be exciting, and we'll see what type of team we have. We'll see what type of coaching staff we have, and we'll see if this football team as a group, not only offense and defense, everybody seems to always want to pit. Well, the defense played great, but the offense didn't do anything. Well, it's still under the Miami Dolphins, right? You got to kind of put that aside. Yeah, you could say that and whisper that to your teammate or whisper that to your friend, but at the end of the day, nobody really gives a shit how good the defense played if the team lost. Right? Nobody really cares. So I just think that the reality's, kind of settled in. The team's a really good team, but they got to figure out the Buffalo Bills on the road. And if they don't, they definitely need to beat the teams they're supposed to beat when it comes down to it.
Well, and that's the thing is and I'm not trying to be uber positive, especially after 2 tough losses, but it just feels, I don't know, they feel different. Like they feel like a team that they need to figure it out. And in the past where I would assume they wouldn't, I sort of feel like they can. Maybe they don't, but I feel like they at least can, which to me is a breath of fresh air. Like to have a coach here that it feels like he knew, like he doesn't look shocked at any of this. He's like, look, at some point they're going to figure me out. And when they do, I'll take the next step and I'll make the next move. And I think they put him in check. Now it's his time to get out of checkmate. And I sort of feel like he can.
Well, the thing that it is a tad for me disappointing is that they haven't been able to just get out of what they're doing and get into something else. Because sometimes, all that motion and all these formations and a lot of different things, when teams are kind of figure out, get back to the basics. If you have a positive play, let's repeat that positive play in the running game. I saw a couple runs by Wilson that were really good. And then all of a sudden you don't see another running play for, 3, 4, 5 plays. And you don't see that exact same running play, maybe run out of a different motion or a different formation, but get back to the same play. I remember watching the game last night And Wilson, earlier in the game looks over to the sidelines and kind of goes, man, I'm this close from breaking one to go into distance. I'm really, what he was saying was, hey, head coach, repeat that play because I think we can get it. We're blocking it. I almost got to the back end of that hole and I was out the gate for a really big play, if not a touchdown. So I think sometimes you have to go back and kind of shorten that call list, check the football down, maybe, send everybody off the line of scrimmage like we have been for 2.5 months, but let your running back run an option route underneath, or just let, your tight end kind of on a delay or a drag, a short under across the middle with trips, getting full flow to the other side. And it's an easy pitch and catch. And you maybe, you get 15, 20 yards. And now you're on a roll. You have a drive starter instead of maybe, pushing the football down the field.
Well, and that's the thing is something you said is like, and they did it they did it last night where it was like a third, I don't know what it was. It was 3rd and 10. I was like, maybe if they gained some yards, they could go for it on 4th down. Because they had the two drives where they got to right around midfield. The one they got to the other side. Tua ran. I've been begging for Tua to do this for 3 years. Tua, instead of forcing a pass, ran, got 1st down. Cool. They reset the down. Yeah. But then they went back to throwing it down the field. And I was like, it's not working. Like, what do you like? And it was like wasted downs. And then you find yourself on a 3rd and 10. And instead of just throwing a short pass and maybe making it 4th and 5, where McDaniel would go for it, Tua threw it into triple coverage.
Yeah.
And it was like, he wasn't even trying to complete that. He was just throwing it away. And it was like, all right, fine. I didn't really lose it. I sort of felt like last night was going to be an L, but I'm like, how does McDaniel change the mentality? Because we've seen that so often when teams get in this flow of an offense. The Rams for years, the greatest show on turf. The problem is when they needed to slow down and kill clock, they couldn't slow down and kill clock, and they lose because you're trying to change a mentality. And you're saying it. How do they change a mentality that's worked to this point, but now it's not? It's clearly not working anymore. And the run game is supposed to be a big part of this offense. It feels like they go away from it way too easy. It may not be working, but at some point, you got to force it down someone's throat, and eventually they're going to tire out, and eventually those holes are going to open up.
Well, that's what I was getting to. Repeating a positive play, especially in the running game. I don't know if the Dolphins have run the football 3 consecutive plays all year. I don't know. Maybe they have, but it just doesn't feel like they have. And sometimes you just need to get back to not basics, but get back to kind of going, okay, we just got 12 yards on a really nice Wilson run. Let's kind of repeat that. Maybe we'll give them a little different look formation wise, but we can go back and repeat that run. Now, I remember maybe it was a month ago, we were talking about how dominant the line of scrimmage play was in terms of offense and defense. The Dolphins dominated up front, and they were able to do anything they really wanted to do. That hasn't been the case so much on offense the last couple of weeks. Nice. Now, Armstead's playing hurt. Hey, give him all the credit in the world going out there, but at some point, he's going to be a liability because he was, getting thrown. That's a big man to get thrown around like that. So it's going to be tougher for him moving forward, especially when you're starting to play better teams. You're kind of up against it now. So if Fisher's going to play, maybe he can get in there and play this week with a full week under his belt. I don't know. But you definitely don't want to move Shell back to the left side because that's not where he plays his best. If Armstead can give you 2 quarters, he can give you 2 quarters. But that offensive line doesn't seem as, I guess, playing as a group as they had been when things were rolling. They've had their moments. They've had some good moments, but they've also had more down moments or more missed assignments or more just getting physically beat at the point of attack than we've seen earlier in the year. So I think that's one of the things that people go, well, the passing game's off, Tua's off. He's terrible now. He's back to what he's doing, but you kind of miss what's in front of him a little bit, and that kind of alters holding the ball, alters your timing, it alters ball location. All those things kind of filter into quarterback play when the guys up front aren't doing what they need to do.
Oh, and that's the thing we've seen around here for a long time when quarterbacks getting hit, even. And Sam Darnold talked about this, the ghost. Even when there are plays where you're not getting hit, you're so accustomed to feeling the pressure that that clock is ticking louder and louder in your head, where by second 3, even if there's no pressure, you know you have to get rid of it because by second 4, someone's going to hit you, even if they weren't. So that's what we're seeing in these last 2-3 weeks is Tua is having like flashbacks. And it feels like even on plays where there isn't a rush, he knows at some point it's coming. And they have to sort of address that. And we'll see how they do that on the fly. A place where, especially right now, the weather's been amazing here. I can't even imagine what the weather's like in the Keys. It's sort of year-round bliss. There's no better place I would feel to take in coming playoff action and bowl season than Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill.
Yeah, there's no losing streaks down at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. That's for sure. You know, it's one of those places where you go down and you're a winner all the time because the weather's outstanding. You know, the Bayside views are beautiful. You want to sit down and have something to eat. The service is wonderful with world-class food. Just about anything you would want from A to Z on a menu is there at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. And then you have the sports bar. You know, you can go in and if you're aggravated, you can belly up to the bar, have a drink, and hope for the second half for the Miami Dolphins to turn things around. But it's one of those places where if you're going to have a good time, you're going with friends, you're going with family, you can go to the tiki bar outside, you can go to the restaurant inside, you can go to the sports bar and have a really good time. And Larry and Dominic and Amanda do such a great job down there at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill that it's just a fun place to be. You kind of sit back and relax, and even if the game doesn't go the way you want it to go, at least you know you can clear your head when you go outside and put your feet up and kind of take in the Bayside views.
And we're looking forward to getting down there. I took it in my hands. I reached out to Amanda and Dom myself. So we're the machinations are in process, and we'll get ourselves down there soon enough. You should get down there. It really is a blast to take in any action. Even a slow Saturday football-wise is a lot of fun down there at the Big Show. When we get back, I do want to talk about the NFL at large, as some interesting things are happening around the league that we may not have expected to see. So we'll talk with Mr. Finsider, Mr. CBS4, John Congemi about that next. The Defo Show. No Defo, just Lubie here on South Florida Live. Pigskin Playbook with John Congemi. Again, thank you to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Largo. Be right back after this.
Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style. And you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. You know, since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right.
Jimmy Johnson joins us here on the program, along with John Congemi, and it's Dateline Dolphins, of course. Leslie Visser, the lovely and talented one.
It was always different. You had to know if it was Emmitt Smith if you screamed at him, he was going to go into a shell. I wasn't going to get anything out of him for the rest of the day. If it's Charles Haley, he was going to get upset at me and maybe threaten me on my life. And
mean it.
Yeah, but mean it. And he could have done it too, I promise. But when he went into my office, he said, Coach, just get on to me one-on-one. Don't do it in front of the other players. Now, Michael Irvin, I could cuss him like a sailor. And the more I cussed him, the harder he worked.
From South Florida to the entire world, thank you to the iHeartRadio app. Here is Defo, joined by Lubie on The Defo Show.
Welcome back, one and all, to the Defo Show. Here, no Defo, just Lubie, with the one and only John Congemi on a Pigskin Playbook Monday. Thanks to Jimmy Johnson's big show of Key Largo. Dolphins went down, tough loss, but still sitting there in the playoff picture. A team that it didn't demolish them, beat them soundly last week, but demolished the Tampa Bay Buccaneers yesterday. The San Francisco 49ers, and to me, it's an interesting story because a big part of sports that we love is the underdog story or the underdog player. John, you were a guy that was high, low, played all different levels of football and all different heights of football. Well, look, we've seen Tom Brady be the 6th-round pick, and I get it. It's happened, and I'm not saying Brock Purdy is that. But I will say he plays really comfortable. We saw it last week ourselves. He plays really comfortable for a guy that was, quote-unquote, Mr. Irrelevant, which in football you see those guys succeed. You don't see those guys succeed at quarterback very often, if ever. It's not like he's just trying to get by. Like, he's making some plays out there that look like a 10-year veteran. And I'm not going to lie, Jimmy G, who's been oft criticized, their offense looks even smoother. And I get it now, they have McCaffrey, and now he's probably comfortable. Watching the Niners right now, they are scary. And it feels like Brock Purdy is not going to hold them back. He may help them excel.
Well, he's done a terrific job, and that's an understatement, right? The guys come in and against the Dolphins just kind of seamlessly went in and did his job. And he did that as, at college at Iowa State. When I watched him play, he was a confident quarterback. Everybody said, well, he doesn't have a great arm. He has a good arm, but he doesn't have a great arm. Well, he can't do this or he can't do that, but he's okay, right? He can do some, he's limited. Well, he doesn't look that limited right now with all those weapons around him and a good defense. And sometimes you get a good quarterback that can kind of do a little bit of everything on the right team in the right scheme, and it accentuates what he does really well. There's a couple plays that, he'd like to have back, just like every player that plays the position, but they didn't cost him. They didn't cost him points. They didn't cost him a turnover. He gets away with them and then takes advantage of the plays that are there. Now, without Samuel, hopefully he's going to be able to bounce back for the 49ers, but it sounds like it's a high ankle sprain. So that means usually multiple games, unless you're a really fast healer. So you're hoping that he gets him back, because that team at full strength can do some damage in the NFC, especially with a guy that's playing at that type of level. You kind of are figuring that defensive coordinators are going to start to get more tape. But when you have the athletes and you have the ability to just give them the football and make things happen, it's not like they're pushing it down the field a whole bunch. They are, to a certain extent, they're taking their shots, but it's more about plugging a guy in and still running the same style of offense, where it's predicated on running the football, screens, getting the ball out, getting the guys in space, making somebody miss, and then coming back with a big play, and then to have the number one unit on the other side of the ball to get it back for you 3 plays later. And the scoreboard doesn't change. It's a good team, so that they could do some damage on that side.
Well, it's interesting, and we forget so often, because when you look at, when it comes to quarterbacks, especially measurables, and that is he big? Is he strong? It's why people have fallen in love with Justin Herbert, and Tua's been forgotten, because one dude is like the definition of a Greek god, and the other guy looks a little shorter, not as ripped, doesn't throw it as strong, but so much else goes into the quarterback position, especially any position, but quarterback, but situation is as important as anything. Like Brock Purdy, who knows what he'll be, and I don't know if he's even going to be the starting quarterback whenever Jimmy G's healthy, but it seems like, and you said it, it's a lot like why Tua works with McDaniel. The situation is as important as anything. And look, when you have an offensive line that gives you time, that run blocks, it allows everything to fall into place. Plus, they have it's not even like the Dolphins defense that's been but don't break. That defense is freaking scary. So you can take some chances. You can, let a Brock Purdy just go for it instead of having him be game manager guy. That team, the sky's the limit to me for that team. And what's interesting to me is it's just funny how we forget like the situation. You have a coach in Shanahan who knows how to coach quarterbacks and put them in the right place and make it easy on them. And it feels like Brock Purdy, that's why his confidence has not changed at all from the days with Matt Campbell at Iowa State to now with Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers.
Well, it's the same holds true with McDaniel. For I don't know, for the better part of 2.5 to 3 months, the Miami Dolphins were unstoppable on offense. And you said, wow, you finally get the right coach with the right scheme to accentuate what Tua does really well. You get one more player in the mix, but he's so dynamic that he changes the way defenses play and the way that they give him cushion because they're so scared of him running right by anyone in a different color jersey on any play. It starts to give you more room, and it gives you bigger windows, and it gives you a lot easier time as a play caller to just kind of, blindly pick one on that page and go, that'll work because of the guys that we have. Now, all of a sudden, you start to struggle where, you're not 100% on the offensive line. Teams adjust what they do in terms of depth of drops and crowding you at the line of scrimmage and combination of that. And you don't execute as well. So, I'm sure that the 49ers are going to enjoy the last 2 weeks on offense, but it's not a guarantee in the National Football League that no matter who they play next week doesn't have an answer. And as the Dolphins found out, they ran into a couple of teams that had answers for them, and they just couldn't get over the hurdle of getting out of their own way on certain plays, but adjusting to those answers defensively. So the NFL seems like a roller coaster, Lubie. You're going to ride your highs. You can't get too low because, at the end of the day, you turn around, you look up at the standings, and the Dolphins are still in a position where they can feel good. They can feel like, hey, we can improve on our position. We can run the table here if we can just, win the next one. And that's where their focus has to be, on the next one, not getting to Green Bay on Christmas, traveling to New England, having the Jets come to Hard Rock to close out the regular season. They have to focus in on the Buffalo Bills. And if they win 10-9, great. If they win in a shootout, great. But finding a way to be there, in the last 15 minutes of that game with a chance to win is where they want to be.
Well, and we're talking about roller coasters. It's funny. A team that we've talked, I think, more about than most people would want to, because they've been so abysmal for so long. But we've been enamored by Dan Campbell because not only was with the Dolphins, but the physical picture of him and the way he coaches is so opposite to what we know in 2022. That Defo, we've joked about it with you, is just we find it funny. We're not making fun of him. Just we find the caveman in 2022 interesting. Well, it's working. I don't know if it's him that's whatever it is. You want to talk about roller coaster? The Lions were dreadful. They were abysmal. The defense sucked. The offense was promising, but they were struggling. Now the defense has sort of found some footing where, hey, as long as we bend but don't break, that offense is really good. And I think they've scored 30 or more every game. That's 5 or 6. It feels like they put up 40, I think, in back-to-back games. The Detroit Lions won again, and we thought they could cover the spread versus the Vikings. We thought the fact that they were favored was strange. Well, they won by double digits, or they won by almost double digits. So it was meant to be. Vegas got it right again. You want to talk about NFL roller coasters? There's nothing more microcosm of that than the Detroit Lions themselves. I don't even know how to explain what the hell's going on there.
Well,
you know what? It's sort of fun. Like, they've become really fun.
It's fun to watch. And first of all, to your first point, you're not going to confuse Dan Campbell with like Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan or Mike McDaniel, right? I mean, he could put him under both of his arms and carry him into the locker room. Dan Campbell is a man's man, and not to say that those other guys aren't, but he's just so imposing in terms of the way he talks to his team, the way he coaches on the sidelines, the way his stature is, that you can always kind of take a little bit from your head coach, and that's what your team's like. That's what your team's about. And Dan Campbell's got these guys believing that they were one play away, that they were so close in the preseason, that things are going to turn around. And even though the season, Dan Campbell might have been 1 or 2 games away from losing his job.
100%.
Okay. And now it seems like even in losses, even when the Dolphins traveled up to Detroit, that was a punch. That was a game. That Jared Goff's playing, he self-admitted, the best football of his life.
Yeah,
and he's excelling, in this offense, and this team is hard to beat because they're mentally tough. They don't feel like they're ever out of a game. They feel like they belong, and I think that has to do with the way they're coached and the way that message has been constantly beat into young men, that you're good enough and you're going to will yourself to win, and we're doing all the right things to put ourselves in position to win. So Dan Campbell, for all the chuckles we've gotten over the last, that he's going to sacrifice a lamb at the 50-yard line, I just think that he's done a hell of a job, and he's got a really good staff around him that are, coaching their guys and their groups. And man, they're on a bit of a roll. Like we were talking about, you get a little bit of belief, you have some success, you get on a roll, you have more confidence, and now you're a favorite at home against a 2-loss team, and you win almost by double digits. I
think they did.
Detroit Lions, you don't want to be next up. If you see Detroit on your schedule, if you've got them in the rear view mirror, you're lucky, because they're playing better football and they're only going to get better.
Oh, they won by double digits. They won by 11. Or what a Vikings team that had the Vikings were a little, for a 10-2 team, were up and down. They'd find a way to win, but they weren't always juggernauts. The Lions are just going, and it's funny. I that's the thing I like talking to you, who was there, where Defo and I played in the street, and you played St. Thomas, you played at Pittsburgh, you played professional football. Like, so often in this racket sports talk, we'll talk about the intangibles, and then Defo and I make fun of people who talk about, the winner guy. It's like, what the hell does that mean? He had Anthony Munoz on the offensive line. It's easy to be a winner guy when you have Ray Lewis and friggin' Terrell Suggs. That's winner guy. But time and time again, players talk about when a coach believes in you, culture, this and that. Sometimes you can just see it. Like the Detroit Lions have bought into whatever that. I still don't understand what Dan Campbell's selling them, but they were. Look, he and you weren't wrong. They were play away. They were losing a lot of tough luck games. And at some point you wondered if it was going to turn. And now it's the opposite, where they're not only winning, they're winning decisively. As a player, like, you feel it when the team quote unquote buys in, because it feels like there are certain teams where you can watch them tangibly buying in and the play in the field changing.
Well, it can go either way. It can spiral out of control, and probably the Lions and Dan Campbell were a week or two away from that thing unraveling, because there's only so many team meetings, there's only so many position meetings, there's only so many times that you can hear the same message and look at the scoreboard and go, this isn't working. Something's got to change, right? But when you're so passionate about what you think you're doing is the right thing, and you're such a believer, and you're spilling it all out in front of the team, going, this is you're real. This isn't fugazi. This isn't made up stuff. He's telling them exactly the way he feels, and he's showing them on the film how close they are. And all of a sudden you get 1 or 2 of those plays to turn around, and then you compound that by doing it again the next week, and then the next week. And even though the results might not have come immediately, you feel like the gap's getting closer to where you want to be. And I think that's a perfect example of what the Detroit Lions are this year. They played really good football and lost games, and they were only a couple plays away, but they kept doing the same things because they felt like that's the way that team can win by coaching it that way. And now things have turned around, and they're in the playoff hunt. They're a team.
Oh, I think they're in the playoffs. I'm doing the
well,
math.
I mean, they're
a disaster.
right now it's week to week. You're in, you're out. You're in, you're out. But they are one of those teams that are right there, for a playoff spot.
Yeah, this is Pigskin Playbook with John Congemi here, formerly Dateline Dolphins. Thank you to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. We like to make our way around the NFLs. John has covered the NFL a long time. So as you sit back, we're here, 3/4 poll, pretty much looking at the league. It feels like the Bills are finally getting back to their place. The Chiefs again, Patrick Mahomes making throws that you're like, no. Oh yeah, it's Mahomes.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And he's doing it back to doing it each and every week. He's back to look. It feels like last year he was Mr. Business, and it feels like this year he's back to having fun. That was what made him Patty Mahomes, where the guy that looked like he was just having a good time. And I felt like last year he felt like he had to play a certain way, and now he's back to just backyard brawling, which is what he did so well. When you look at the league right now in the NFC, it feels like it's sort of a slug. When you look at the AFC, you do have those two teams rising to the top. Who are you most impressed by right now, and maybe who are you most disappointed? Looking at, we'll get to the 3/4 poll.
Well, I think in the NFC, it's got to be the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I didn't think they were going to be that good. I don't know. I mean, a one-loss team that, in a division where, the Cowboys are good, and they're probably the next team up, but I don't know. I don't know if Philadelphia right now can be manhandled or beaten. They're playing with such confidence, and they're going to be playing, teams that they should be favored the whole way through. Dallas is one of those teams that can make a push. Minnesota, I don't know. I didn't believe it when I saw them against the Dolphins. Yeah, they can put it together for a week, but it depends on matchups with them. I think with Philadelphia and Dallas and San Francisco, they're good enough to beat you no matter, what the matchup is, that they're going to be favored. They're going to be able to take care of business if they're the team that's a 7-point, 6-point, 10-point favorite, whatever the case may be. Now, on the other side, you've got question marks. I like Buffalo and Kansas City because they're probably going to be home throughout the playoffs. But the Ravens are the team. If they get Lamar back, they could cause some trouble in terms of just because he's the X factor. If he's healthy and he gets back, now they're probably going to have to play next week with the 13 quarterback that finished the Steeler game because of concussion protocol. I don't know what the situation is going to be, but it sounded like Jackson was going to be out at least 2 games. And maybe be ready for the 3rd week. So if they can survive that, they're in good position. Cincinnati, that's another team. They're getting some momentum built. So right now, I remember Coach McDaniel talking about you want to be playing your best football at the end of the season. You're building it up. The Dolphins started out hot, but he said, this is great, but we want to build off of this and play our best football as we continue. Well, they hit that tough stretch, this 3-game stretch. We knew it was going to be hard. They made it even harder by not getting one of the 2 in California. So they have to restart now. They have to, start the engine over again and kind of build this last window. So they're building momentum towards the month of January. And that's going to be a difficult thing to do this week in Buffalo.
Yeah, we do like to talk all forms of football, and there was no college action this weekend, but coming up Friday, we start the bowl season. So I do want to touch on the bowl season a little bit as a guy who covered the NFL and covered college football for so long for ESPN. I do want to talk to you a little bit about the bowl season. So we're going to take a break here. When we get back, we will have more Pigskin Playbook, thanks to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo, with the one and only John Congemi right here on the Defo Show. No Defo, just Lubie on South Florida Live.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently, we realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business. And the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752. Would you go into court without an attorney? So why would you go up against an insurance company without Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa? 7 to 10 times more money recovered with a public adjuster than if you went on your own. If there's no recovery, there's no fee. Give them a call at 954-809-8752.
We welcome to the show John Congemi, who joins us for Dateline Dolphins. John, how are you, my friend?
Defo, I'm doing well, and that's not the only thing that's going to reach a new height. I'll be at about 220, 225 after this football season if we visit too much. Because the food's outstanding down at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill.
Grab a bagel and a schmear, plus some Defo and Lubie. Welcome back to the Defo Show.
All right, last few minutes here on this edition of the Pigskin Playbook with one and only John Congemi. Again, thank you to Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill of Key Largo. The bowl season commences this Friday. Before we get to that, I do want to talk. I don't know if this is the last year or second to last year before we get to the bigger playoffs, which, look, every year it seems to find its way, and these are the 4 teams that feel like they should make it. But it would be interesting to see a Bama there at a 5th or 6th spot, see a Tennessee, see some of these other teams that were really close and struggled at the end, but get a chance in a playoffs. What are your thoughts on the playoff field and the idea of an expansion of the playoffs?
Well, I never thought I'd say this because I'm a believer in maybe expanding it, but this would have been the perfect scenario for the BCS this year because Georgia and Michigan could have played because they earned the right during the regular season. You know, ESPN always says, the regular season matters. Well, if that's the case, you had 2 undefeated teams and they fought their way through their, regular seasons. They got to their championship games. They won their championship games, and they're the 2 teams that should play against each other for the national title. So I thought this year that would have been easy to do. But you're right. If you take the other side of the equation and you look at teams like Alabama, who lost games on the last play of the game with a beat up quarterback, and you take Nick Saban's talking points and you figure out, if they were in it, would they be favored against some of these teams? I think they're favored against anybody, maybe except the last 2 teams, the first 2 teams in Georgia and Michigan. So you have Tennessee that, their quarterback gets hurt against South Carolina. They lose on the road. They've been dominant all year. TCU has something to prove. I think, after losing such a hard-fought battle there at the end in their championship game. USC, Utah. How about they're the USC Slayers. Yep. They would have gotten in somewhere, for those 2 games. And had they not had to play in the swamp early in the year when they were trying to, you don't know what kind of team you have. You're good, but you don't put it together. And, Florida has a good night and you kind of get pigeonholed as a team that's not very good. You beat USC not once, but twice. They deserve to be there. And then you have a team like Florida State that could have gotten, some consideration. LSU, Ole Miss, teams that are just on the cusp that, depending on a matchup, you can win a first round game and then you never know what happens. So, I'm looking forward to it. And I think it's in 2 years. It starts
that's why I
to
wasn't sure. I think
expand.
it's 2 years.
But, you never know. That's at the change of a vote. That could happen, pretty quickly. So it'll be exciting that way. But I just think that, the regular season does have to hold, still the merit, because you're going through a gauntlet and your team kind of evolves and changes for the good and bad. And, you have to take that all into consideration.
Yeah, see, that's my curiosity, because we've debated this for years. That third team, then it's the fifth team, then it's okay. So it's like the NCAA tournament. At some point, when does it lose weight, right? Like I look myself, when FSU loses, it stresses me out a lot more than the Dolphins, because again, the college football, it was ingrained in me. One loss can end your season.
Yeah.
In the NFL, it's that fifth loss that could end your season. So I myself, I've sort of proven in the sense that it's like, I do stress out college football losses a lot more than the NFL. Why is that? Well, the playoff thing. But I'm not going to lie, I've also been on the other side where I'd like to see more teams sort of get a shot and see if they could dethrone the juggernaut. So I don't know. I'm sort of in the middle on it. But I do like that the regular season, quote unquote, matters. It just feels like at some point it's hard to maintain that and then go for the dollar, because that's why they're going for the playoffs. The playoffs ended up working so great. The games were so highly rated. It took a sport that had become regional and made it more national. It's New Year's Eve, and you get these games on that have been, even the games haven't even been great. The games have been sort of blowouts, but people still watch it. That's like, oh shoot, let's have more of them, and let's make
the playoff is on, right?
Yes,
and it'll be important to see, who gets the buys, who's the the last couple of teams in, just like the NCAA basketball tournament. Who's in, who's out.
Exactly.
You're making your arguments. There's just more teams to talk about. I'm sure it'll cause the networks to have 72 analysts at the same time talking about the 12th team and how the 13th team and how they got screwed. But it'll be fun. I think it'll be great for college football, because it'll get more teams involved, and you'll have a team that, like we're talking about in the NFL, your teams that are getting hot, getting closer to the playoffs. No one wants to play Utah right now. If you had to, I don't care if you're Georgia or Michigan, TCU, Ohio State. Look at Ohio State. They get blown out at home in their biggest rivalry game, and they slither their way back in, to the fourth spot, and now they have life. Now if they have one good week and find a way to, dethrone the defending champs, they're probably going to get a rematch on a neutral site against a really good Michigan team if they take care of business against TCU. But that's why we're waiting to see what happens, and the excitement will only grow if it's not only 4 teams, it's 8 or 12. It'll be a lot of fun.
Well, and Sarni says it here, and he's right. It does. It's like what baseball added that playoff team, and Defo and I sort of made fun of it, but it allowed the division winner to get a break, and the team that just gets in had to play an extra game. So it made winning a division important. And what we've seen the last few years is you almost don't care if you win a conference title, because you get a week off. And Bama gets to not play. Ohio State gets to not play. Now you have a TCU have to play and a Michigan have to play. And that's not fair. And it's like, you shouldn't be punished for winning your division. So this rewards the conference champion, where if you win your conference, you're in. Whatever your conference is in the Power 5 world, you win, you're in. So it does give that a little bit more weight, which is something that was starting to lack. So I do appreciate that. Before we get out of here, what I do want, and we'll talk with you Monday before the real bowl season kicks in, but we have some games this weekend. What are some of the bowls, high or low, that you've sort of circled that you're looking to watch?
Well, I'm going to watch the Pitt UCLA game. I think that's going to be a given. I don't know. The Orange Bowl is going to be a hell of a football game. You get Tennessee and Clemson together. I think that's going to be a really good one. There was a couple, New Year's Day games. I was like, I don't know. The matchups are kind of okay. I'm really focused in on the games that I mentioned, and also I'd like to see how TCU how they respond. They lose. They've won close games the entire year, and then they lose in overtime. They get stuffed on the goal line. You lose by a field goal. I'd like to see, preparing for Michigan, how they're going to respond, and can Michigan do it without their number one running back? They seem like they did it, in the championship game, the Big Ten championship game, but it's a different animal, come playoff.
Well, hopefully we get to do more of this football chatter down at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. I'm going to keep working the back channels, and no better place to take in football action. So definitely get down there as we have the bowl season and NFL, I think, get back to Saturday play as well this weekend. John, enjoy your week, sir, and can't wait to talk to you again next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Lubie.
All right, Congemi, man, we'll talk to you. This has been Pigskin Playbook with the one and only John Congemi. Thank you to Jimmy Johnson, Big Chill of Key Largo. Appreciate everyone that found me this morning. We will have a lunchbox, no Defo, just Lubie with Mr. Mike Mayo coming up at about 12 o'clock on I think Tropical Acres. So you will get your fill of Mike Mayo. You'll get Mike Lubis. And I think we will have a special guest since Defo won't be there. You'll get a special guest talking food and football. Maybe a little bit. I know the one and only Joanne does not like when we talk sports, but it's a passion of both Mayo's and mine. We love food and we try and keep it to the food, but sports does wiggle its way in. So check that out today at 12 p.m. We did start our Fridays at Gulfstream Park, and that was a lot of fun. We have our trivia contest working for a pair of gift certificates or passes or vouchers to the 10 Palms buffet. So definitely stay tuned to that show. Watch it all week, and we'll do that every Friday. And I will be alone with Mayo, but we have a special guest, I think, coming on. So check that out, and check me out tomorrow morning right here. Appreciate John Congemi joining me. Appreciate Brett Tessler joining me. And Defo will be joining me Thursday. Thank you so much for those that stuck it out with me today. And we'll check you out tomorrow morning right here. The Defo Show. No Defo, just Lubie on South Florida Live.